All right, we're here with video 6, which is operations on functions, multiplication and division with numbers. This is similar to what you've been doing, but this time we're going to look at multiplication and division. I know you're excited. We have our two functions. F of x is 4x plus 8, and g of x is 2x. We're going to find f times g of 6. 2 videos ago, that example said f plus g of 6. Now we're multiplying. Let's find out how we could rewrite this. You can see that we can write it as f of 6 times g of 6, which should look familiar after the last 2 videos. And one more thing, we want to use those big parentheses. So here's the big reveal. F of 6 times all of the information for g of 6. So now we're going to write this out with our 2 sets of extra large parentheses, so we have plenty of room to write in our function information.
Do I need to put the dot, Miss Johnson, if I'm using parentheses?
You don't, because 2 sets of parentheses next to each other mean multiplication, but I would hate for you to make a mistake and think you were adding or subtracting like the last 2 videos. It's up to you, but you better get it right.
Oh, snap.
In the first set of parentheses, our function is 4x plus 8. We're going to have 4, a little set of parentheses, so we can substitute our value, plus 8. In our second set of parentheses, we're going to have 2x, 2 with a little set of parentheses for us to substitute our value. Our value in this problem is 6, so inside each set of parentheses, we're going to replace with 6. And you have the option of doing this by hand or using the Google calculator like Mr. Nelson has showed us. If we wanted to do it by hand, we would work in our red set of parentheses first. We have multiplication and addition. We know multiplication comes first. So 4 times 6 is 24 plus 8. 24 plus 8 is 32. And then we'll bring down our second set of parentheses. Or, Mr. Craig, do you just want to put the 12 with your arrows underneath?
Oh, God bless you. God bless you. And yes, I should have kept the parentheses there. Sorry, Miss Johnson, I got lazy. And that's how errors happen.
And then 32 times 12 probably makes you want to type it into your calculator anyway. Gentlemen,
Miss Johnson, what is it? What is it?
Off the top of your head.
320 plus 64.
384.
384. Is that what it is? Am I right?
No, I don't really trust you, Mr. Craig, so I'm going to type it into the Google calculator right now. Darn it! He's right. It's 384.
384. Even Mr. Craig is right twice a day, like a broken clock. And what about this equal part? What I got to put on the other side of there?
No victory dance just yet. We need f times g of 6 equals 384.
You'll notice that I'm writing down in cursive. Believe it or not, we didn't write them nicely here, but in reality, and that should be, sorry, that should be a 6. In reality, when we write functions, functions are like, they look kind of weird. You can always tell when you see a function on a assignment, because they always write them like kind of cursive-y and kind of, you can always notice, like, you always know when it's a number versus a variable versus a function, because they write functions in text and on tests very weirdly, and you can always tell when you have one.
I would call them italicized.
Italicized, but it's more than that. But yes, yes, yes. Elongated italicized is what I would say, maybe. All right. Next one.
Next one.
Woohoo!
This one is division. Our f of x is 4x plus 8. Our g of x is 2x again, but this time we're doing f divided by g of 2. So when we show you how we can write this, we have f of 2 divided by g of 2. we would all, Mr. Craig, Mr. Nelson, and I prefer you to write it like a fraction. So f of 2 on top in the numerator, g of 2 on bottom in the denominator, but it's hard for us to type. When you see that next one, you're going to see those parentheses that we've been using so that we can put all of our information for function f in the numerator and all of our information for function g in the denominator. And we will get those filled in. In the numerator, we're going to have 4 with a set of parentheses plus 8. And in the denominator, 2 with a set of parentheses. This time, the value that's going inside those parentheses is a 2. Please remember when you're simplifying a fraction like this by hand, the fraction bar itself is a grouping symbol. It tells us first do the top, then do the bottom, and last divide. So we'll take a look at the numerator. We have 4 times 2 plus 8. Mr. Craig is writing some stuff. In those top parentheses, 4 times 2 comes first, so we'll have 8 plus 8, which is a numerator of 16. Then we'll take a look at the denominator. In the denominator, we have 2 times 2, which is 4. Now that we've found our numerator and denominator, it is time to divide. Remember that fraction bar is our division symbol. 16 divided by 4 is our final answer, 4.
Is that how I write it?
No, Mr. Craig, if you write it like that, you'll be wrong. You need to write f divided by g of 2 equals 4.
Sorry for my scrunchiness.
If you're not comfortable doing this by hand, then Mr. Nelson's going to walk us through how we could type this in using parentheses in the Google calculator.
It's the way that we're going to be typing this in. I'm going to go all the way back to that first, after we substituted in the 2. Remember that we want to keep the numerator in parentheses as well as the denominator in parentheses. So I'm going to start with a group of parentheses and type in 4 times 2 plus 8. And that will be my numerator. And right here, I have to use the / for my divider symbol. And then in the bottom, I'm going to use a group of parentheses for the denominator, which is 2 times 2.
Don't forget your parentheses.
Don't forget all those parentheses.
It's really not that hard. You just write down what you see. Don't cut corners.
The only difference here is that you can't write it vertically as numerator and then denominator. You have to kind of write them side by side. Just make sure that the numerator comes first and then the denominator.
Cool. Screen share. Ms. Johnson, carry on.
But they can't all be that easy. F of x is 2x plus 5, and g of x is x squared. This is the first time that we've dealt with an exponent when we are adding, subtracting, or in this case, multiplying our functions. We have f times g of 4, and how could we write that? As f of 4 times g of 4.
Cool.
We're going to want our big set of parentheses for our f function. I am going to make Mr. Craig put the time sign and a set of parentheses for our g function. Inside our first set of parentheses, we'll have 2 and a small set of parentheses for the value we're replacing, plus 5. Inside our second set of parentheses, we will have a set of parentheses and then that set of parentheses to the second power.
Scary looking.
We are going to replace those parentheses with our 4. So inside our red set of parentheses, we'll have 2 times 4 plus 5. And in our blue set, we'll have 4 to the second power. If we want to simplify this by hand, we can. We have 2 sets of parentheses, but we know that the second step in order of operations is exponents. So let's head over to the blue set of parentheses, and we'll do 4 to the second power, which is 16. Thanks, Mr. Craig. That set of parentheses is simplified. We don't need it anymore. Mr. Craig's going to keep it for clarity. Now we'll go back, we'll do 2 times 4 and add on our 5. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 5. We do need this set of parentheses. It can't go away just yet. 8 plus 5 is 13. And then we're going to see about Mr. Craig's mental math prowess for 13 times 16 for the final step.
Well, I know that 10 times 16 is 160, and 3 times 16 is 48.
Yes.
48 plus 160 is 100 and no, 208, right?
It's 208.
Oh, you guys are throwing me under the bus here.
And this is why we use a calculator.
God bless calculators.
And of course, Mr. Craig's going to remember to write that F times G of 4 is 208.
Be careful on making your multiplication here. We haven't learned this yet, but don't get sloppy and be like times, because this does not mean multiplication. You got to fill it in. It's got to be a dot. We'll talk more about that in later lessons, but just make sure when you make your dot, it's a dot. Next slide.
And we have one more.
Cool. Division.
One more division. So we have F divided by G of 2. We are going to write this vertically as our fraction with F of X on top and G of X on bottom. So up on top, we're going to use our function F of X. We will have 2 with our small set of parentheses plus 5. And then on the bottom, again, we have x squared, so we'll have our set of parentheses for the g function, and inside there, we'll have a set of parentheses to the second power. We're going to fill both sets of parentheses with the value 2. Please remember, when we are solving these by hand, we're going to do the top, then the bottom, then divide. For the top, we have 2 times 2 plus 5. 2 times 2 will give us 4. 4 plus 5 will give us 9. Now it's time to take a look at the bottom. We have 2 squared. 2 to the second power is 2 times 2, which will give us 4. And we will end up with a final answer of 9/4.
Is that really the answer?
Well, yeah. We know a lot of elementary teachers don't like improper fractions, but I, for one, am an improper fraction lover. But it would be okay if you wanted to turn this into a mixed number. If you did, you would have 2 and 1/4, so that answer would be okay. If you're a person who likes decimals, or if you used a calculator, then you would get 2.25. All of those are correct, and all of them will work in Canvas. Please remember to write F divided by G of 2 equals your choice of answer, 9/4, 2 1/4, or 2.25. We hope this video was helpful and that you feel confident in multiplying and dividing functions.